a lot of times, especially if there are problems, if there are late filings with the 5500, if there's a Department of Labor examination, it doesn't seem like it's worth it. I've had many employers where we've gone in and done an analysis for them, and they've said, "Can I just shut it down?" Because it's not worth the resources that I'm putting towards it. But yes, technically you could, but you don't necessarily want to stop the bus when it's going 60 miles an hour. It's much better to have a well-oiled machine going forward, so you don't have to necessarily worry about it every single day. 3, prepare an investment policy statement. Does anybody here know what that is? Most don't. An investment policy statement is a document that would be in your plan that indicates the roles and responsibilities of those that are associated with the plan, service contracts that are associated with it, and what you hope to accomplish in the overall investments. And we'll go into it later as to what safe harbor provisions are and things that can be put in place that are another layer of insulation for the employer, but investment policy statement is key, and we will, again, flesh that out later. Use prudent experts and use document due diligence. Prudent experts, the prudent man rule is one that indicates that I, as a fiduciary, am going to act in your best interest. I wouldn't do anything in your account that I wouldn't do in mine, or I wouldn't do in my mother's, or I wouldn't do in any of your old ladies. I act in the best interest. It's not because I've got a boat payment, house payment, tuition payment to make. It's because it's what is going to be good for your long-term health. That's one of the important pieces of licensing. Any professional designations that you enjoy, any government licenses that you have, part of our code of ethics and our provisions is that we will act prudently towards our clients and not enact in their best interest, not our best interest, no matter how much I like fast cars or big houses. Control and account for investment expenses. This is another huge area that's very gray. A lot of people don't understand how mutual fund companies make their money. They don't understand how record keepers are paid. They don't understand how advisors are paid. Next year, with the Department of Labor regulations that are coming out, there is going to be a tremendous amount of disclosure as to who's getting paid what and how much. You as stewards are held accountable, especially if plan monies are being used to pay for these things, that it's cost effective, that it's advantageous for the participants, all participants. One of the problems with the practice here that went through the examination is that it was considered top-heavy, and the funds or the entire plan was paying for something that was just good for the physicians. And so if you are a nurse, a CNA, making $20,000 a year, it's very hard to understand that 4% of your retirement assets are going towards the subsidization of Dr. Big Bucks, who's making $3 million a year. It's very, very hard. That action actually stemmed from a disgruntled employee. Your question as to where do these things come from and how do they happen? Good morning and welcome. 6, monitor the activities of prudent experts. You cannot, you will not, you should not, most do, say, after me comes the flood, I've hired so-and-so and such and such. Whew, thank God. You can't give marching orders and then leave them to go. We recently met with an employer that instituted a 401k plan. They had to transition in their advisor. They haven't looked at it for 5 years. Hope is not a plan in that regard. You have to be very, very proactive. And in here, we're going to give you the steps to go back and look forward. Okay, this is what we need to do. These are the things that we need to institute. Avoid conflicts of interest and prohibited transactions. 401ks, retirement plans are some of the worst areas, ESOP plans are some of the worst areas where, A, the IRS is paying attention because abuses have happened, they are prevalent. You cannot keep commercial property for a physician's practice within a 401k. Why do people do that? Why do people hide assets within an IRA? It's because in the case of litigation, the things that cannot be attached are my primary home, 6 months of my wages, and my retirement accounts. So that is, and again, we'll go into later the other prohibited transactions. Conflicts of interest emerge. This is very important for endowments, but with the 401k, I have an accountant refers me over to Bob the broker, without disclosing that maybe they have a profit agreement between the two of them. That profit agreement is paid for through plan assets. This happens all the time. That's why part of the Department of Labor's disclosures that are coming out are saying that if there are agreements in place, you must disclose. In your financial foundation, as to your documents, you want to be able to speak to conflicts of interest, how to deal with them. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they're unavoidable, but articulate, articulate, articulate. If it is written out, then you can protect yourself and say, we knew about it, here is our policy, take a peek. Any questions so far?
So basically, Margaret, we need to hire a full-time person to stay
Well, I mean,
on
and
top of all this stuff.
that is the scary part, and that's, I mean, if you are running a large or small organization, I find actually in smaller organizations where it is one person is the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and I iron, that is the place where A, they need the most help and don't get it. B, they would much prefer to shut the plane down. But if you're a small business interest, what do you want? You want fantastic employees, and you want to be able to recruit and retain them. In the absence of a 401k plan, I know from my perspective, Social Security may not be there for me. We have to have institutions in place that allow our employees to save for retirement. So yes, it seems overwhelming, but actually, if before you reach critical mass, you can, I mean, there are very easy ways to fix it. Have it in place, have a process, set the time on your calendar to do all of the processes that you need to do, and then it's not so overwhelming. Seems like it, especially if we are not great at math. I've met a lot of administrators that mutual funds are free. You should, it's a no-load mutual fund. There are layerings of fees that if this is not your special place in the sun, your circle of competence, you will presume, and you will presume wrongly. And then the Department of Labor would be very happy to say, did you realize that your participants are paying 5%? Yes. Do you know that average is 1.5%? 1%? Yes. Then you are not acting as a prudent steward if you knew and you allowed it to happen. Sure.
So basically, this is for matching and non-matching plans.
Matching.
And also, so therefore, if you offer a plan to your employees for tax-deferred savings, whatever, 457 or whatever it is, and whatever they want to take, you offer that, you're still responsible, even though they just go, they apply, all you do is take the money out of their paycheck.
Yes. Welcome to accountability. Now, there are certain things that you can have in place for plan structure, safe harbor provisions, things like that, that draw a line in the sand between you and litigation and say that, but there are disclosures that are associated with it. Many, many times, people are like, I'm fine. I've got a safe harbor 401k, rock star status. Okay. Have you done the quarterly disclosures that are necessary? Well, isn't Nationwide doing that? No. Have you done X, Y, and Z as far as the educational opportunities available to your employees? No. Isn't Nationwide doing that? Isn't Merrill Lynch supposed to do that? They come in once a year. No. You might have it, but you are not compliant, which is a huge red brush to be painted by for the IRS. I mean, you might as well strip down and go walk in the street and say, by the way, pay attention just in case you're interested. So a long answer to your short question is, you have it, you choose to have it, you are accepting fiduciary liability, and you are on the hook. Any other questions? It's a very good question. Anybody depressed yet?
Yeah.
I know I'm depressed. You're like, but wait, I'm doing this for the benefit of my employee. How can you hold me liable? Everything is roses until it's not. And what we hope to do, as I mentioned before, is simultaneously prepare you for war and peace. A fantastic employee is a fantastic employee until they are disgruntled. And there's normally not a period of transition that allows you to say, oh wait, Bob is getting angry. Bob has an axe to grind. Bob wants to retire in 4 years. And I don't know if you all lived through 2008, 2009, and if you had retirement accounts, Bob is pissed that he is down 40% and he relied on those assets. So that's how quickly it is. That's why we want to stress the importance of it. And poor Bob, he's going to get a bad rap today. He's going to be the angry employee. If we have another name we want to use, supervisors, things like that, ladies, just let me know. I'll translate it out throughout. So, from precepts to practices, and what are the things that I'm going to be discussing as we go through. Precepts are principles founded in law. Practices are applications of the precepts founded in law and research. And a standard of practices, which is what we're hoping to teach you today, constitutes a body of knowledge as to what is required for a person or an organization to meet recognized expectations. We want to have best practices in place. There is no original thought. I stopped believing in it a long time ago. We are stealing everybody else's best ideas and getting input from the government as to whether or not we need to fine-tune those best ideas. So, there are 4 steps that we traditionally recommend a steward typically have in place, and those are organize, formalize, implement, and monitor. Organization is probably the most important step, and one that we will spend quite a bit of time on, because it is your foundational piece. A building constructed on a faulty foundation will eventually subside and fall. If we have a Rock of Gibraltar, if we have our ducks in a row, it makes it that much easier going forward. Now, a lot of you might be sitting there going, okay, we've had this plan in place since since before dinosaurs ruled the earth, we've had this plan in place. What am I supposed to do if I'm not starting fresh? You can retroactively fix it. You can go back and overhaul it. A, it shouldn't be expensive. B, the environment which we're in, advisors are expecting that to happen. And C, it protects yourself. And for a very minimal effort, you can achieve what you hope to achieve in the long run. So part of step 1, organize, is we go through various practices. Now, offline, if anybody wants to actually get the book O, where we actually have these practices, I would be delighted to give it to you, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with paper. But these are referring back to El Tome of what investment stewards should do, and you can refer back to it at your leisure. Some are salient to what we're doing today, some are not. I'm going to try to skip over the ones that are not because of the crowd that we have. Practice 1, we want to manage investments in accordance with applicable laws, trust documents, and a written IPS. Part of your 401k plan, 457, 403B, should have included a binder from the advisor that you have. That binder indicates that this is an ERISA plan, that it has been tested, and that you are going to be accountable to the laws of written within ERISA. An IPS is essentially the business plan for the plan. It says this is how we're going to operate, this is who our vendors are, this is how we found our vendors, this is how we assessed fees. It is the CYA document. 2, the roles and responsibilities. A lot of people don't know. You were very aware as to whether or not they were fiduciaries, who's on the hook, who's not on the hook, and how deeply can that hook be buried in. It does pierce the corporate veil. This is one of those things where there's corporate liability and personal liability. Self-dealing, we will go into that further as to what happens in plans, how that happens, how it can be avoided. Service agreements and contracts. This is the art and nuance as to your actual documents. If you have something in place saying that we hired Bob Broker, this is how much we are paying him. This is the process that we went through to find him to make sure that it's cost effective, and this is how often we rebid our opportunity for our 401k. That is what we hope for. Jurisdiction over assets. This would include your ERISA bond. This is one of the things that are so easy to be in compliance with, but most people are not. Your ERISA bond, the size of it needs to be 10% of plan assets. So if you have $1 million plan, your ERISA bond needs to be $100,000. We see a lot of companies that have grown large very quickly. They reach critical mass within their plans just because they have the participants, and they have a $100,000 ERISA bond and a $10 million plan. Whoops. Easy thing to fix. Very, very easy